employees here at the City and County of San Francisco understand through a very real perspective, an everyday experience that we live, that things are unfair. They're just inherently unfair. They're built into the system this way. But the nature of the situations that have prevailed and unfolded over the last several weeks really proved that in a very factual way. And today, we should feel vindicated and validated based on something really big that's about to happen in terms of a corroboration that the EEO director of Human Resources actually admitted that she coerced the EEO manager to not have a finding in the case of the African American woman who filed a discrimination complaint. So we have some very serious issues here at the city and county that need to be corrected for as it pertains to not only entry in terms of recruitment, how recruitment is done, how hiring is done, because there are all sorts of issues around hiring that I understand from an HR and management perspective. But there are also issues just in terms of the ways in which Black and brown employees come to work every day and are mistreated. And then even when the claims are put forth in a whether it's emotional or whether it is detailed and summarized, it's invalidated. And that is the way that the system is built. It's built to work against us. This country was founded on sentiments of anti-Blackness, anti-Black racism, laws that constituted that Black women could be raped legally. Virginia, 1705, Black women could be raped legally. Virginia, 1669, it's legal to kill Black people, Negroes. 1722, South Carolina, it's legal to castrate Black men. 1850, the Fugitive Slave Act, it initializes a racial police force of all white people to catch both enslaved and free Black people if they had the thought that the person was supposed to be enslaved. So it embedded white suspicion into the criminal system and into the culture of America. And so we have been dealing with that issue, and we still deal with it, that we can just be suspected, the perception perceived to be a certain way, not conforming to white norms and white expectations about how we should be showing up, and then that gets weaponized against us. And it's weaponized in every way. And until leaders in the city, the mayor, to all department heads, to HR officials understand the functionality of that and their role in it, their role in upholding it, we will never have any progress. So I just wanted to open with those comments, and I want to thank every single person that showed up here today, because what we are talking about, we're not just talking about equity, we're talking about justice and relief for Black and brown employees, for Black employees. So I want to say we have two supervisors here that I really respect and admire a lot. One of them, we've grown a relationship. I've been knocking on his door for the last few years. But Supervisor Shaman Walton, and then also Supervisor Matt.
So much. First, I just want to let all of our employees, our Black employees, our Latino employees, our employees of color, that I stand with you 100%. As a member of the Board of Supervisors. As you know, I am the only Black member of the Board of Supervisors right now, and I take this work and this role very seriously. It has been time for change with our Human Resources Department. We've known that. There were series of hearings conducted prior to my arrival on the Board of Supervisors. We have one coming on October 15th that took us a while to get to, partially because of the pandemic. But that hearing is going to look at those 10 demands that the mayor gave Human Resources from the 2018 hearing. And we're going to see the report back of what has changed and what hasn't. Obviously, we anecdotally know that little has changed between that point and this time. Obviously, you're tired of hearing people say that they're going to make change and they're going to do something different. At our last board meeting, the previous board meeting, I talked about some of the legislation that we're requesting to make sure that we have independent investigations when employees make complaints. to make sure that we do something about our equal employment opportunity organization within the city. Supervisor Peskin and I called for a hearing to look at EEO and its practices, to look at what's happening with EEOs in other cities so that we can do things differently and revamp that system. So I want you to know that I'm not just here for lip service. I don't just stand with you and say that I want to make change. We're actually going to have legislation on the books. We're actually calling hearings with the purpose of making sure that we adhere to recommendations. I did receive the recommendations from the Black Employee Alliance. I'm definitely looking at those. Some of those things we can do without legislation, so that is the good part. But I want you to know we're committed to things happening and being different. It is not okay that Black employees do not have opportunities for promotion like other employees here in this city. It is not okay that complaints are not taken seriously and they're not addressed. It is not okay to be mistreated when you go to work. This is a strong union town, and we all have rights that are protected. And when you have a city like San Francisco and we have employees who are scared to speak up and talk about the injustices, that tells us that something is definitely wrong. And so we're here to make those changes. We're here to work together. As you can see, Supervisor Haney is here, and I have other members of the Board of Supervisors that also stand with us who couldn't be here today. But this is not going to just be about lip service. We are going to make some change together. We stand with you, and just know that we're going to do our part from the legislative branch to support Black employees, to support employees of color, and really have changes in the books, have changes that are going to be changes that last, that help us change the issues that exist systemically. So thank you for hearing us out. Thank you for doing this today and calling attention to a problem that we've known has existed for far too long here in our city, and we have to work to fix it and make changes. So I appreciate you allowing us to say a few words. Thank you. Shimon Walton, Supervisor, District 10. It'll be 2 years at the end of this year.
Congratulations. Looking forward to working with you.
Thank you.
I just want to say, since Supervisor Walton has been a supervisor, he's done some great things to help the Black community. If you don't follow him on Facebook, you should, because he's always posting about the things that he's doing. He's bringing forth reparations legislation for the Black community, Black residents here in San Francisco, to respond to a lot of the displacement and outmigration that has occurred over the last 4 or 5 decades. So anyway, thank you very much, Supervisor Walton. Next, I want to invite Supervisor Haney. Thank you so much for being here. If you can have some words.
All right, great. Well, first of all, I just want to say thank you to the Black Employee Alliance and to all of the city workers and allies who are here. This is a brutal day. This is a day where a lot of people are being told to stay inside and shelter in place and stay out of this air. But we know that our city workers often don't have that option. That there are thousands of city workers who are out there right now who have been going out and putting their health on the line this entire crisis, who are putting their health on the line during this brutal air, and are being asked to do incredibly difficult things and make sacrifices. So I want to say thank you to all of our city workers who are here. And I especially want to, as Supervisor Walton said, draw attention to the fact that Black city workers have been shouting about the discrimination, about the harassment, about the lack of fairness and equity within our city government for years. And it shouldn't take the revelation of a scandal like we saw this past couple weeks to be able to say, you all are absolutely right. Yes. Your experience is the truth, and this city should do better. We can do better. You saw Donald Trump, and I hate to bring up his name ever, but he's out there saying that we need to actually get rid of completely and ban cultural competency training, anti-racist training. And in reality, San Francisco, as a place that claims to be the resistance to what Donald Trump represents, should be going full speed in the opposite direction, ensuring that our black employees have the same opportunities as everyone else in terms of pay, in terms of promotion, in terms of working conditions. That's how we resist Donald Trump and live up to who we say we are. Because black people in this city for decades have been pushed out, have been mistreated, have been displaced. And at the very minimum, the city and county of San Francisco should do right by the people who work for this city and pay them equally, promote them at equal levels, even do more to make up for the systemic racism of the past. You know, we have Proposition 16 on the ballot, which will overturn Prop 209. And the reason why we have to do that is because our city and county, our state government, should actually be addressing historic and systemic racism with our policies. Not just equality, not just everyone's treated the same, because it hasn't been that way. It actually has to be making sure that we look at the failures, look at the ways in which we've undermined opportunity and correct for it. And we know that our city government can do better. What we are calling for, absolutely, is in the leadership of our city departments, including DHR, moving forward, that they have an agenda and a clear set of policies and goals that they're going to be held accountable to when it relates to addressing anti-black racism in our city. That's what we are committed to holding them accountable to. And I see our laborers are here. I see 1021. I see TWU. I see Local 21. People who are going out every single day should have the respect from the leadership of our city. And what we are here to say, and I'm in solidarity with the workers, solidarity with Supervisor Walton, that we are here to listen and to also follow through. And so let us know what we need to do. We represent you all. We are your representatives, and hold us accountable. Tell us what we can do better. I represent this district right here. I represent District 6, which includes the Tenderloin. I live 3 blocks from here, right up the street there. I represent south of Market, Mission Bay, Treasure Island. And this is now an area of the city that has a lot of black city workers. This is an area of the city that is also in need of tremendous investment and support. And when we support our city workers, we support our residents. Thank you all for what you do. Whatever we can do to do better, let us know. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Can we just appreciate them once more, please? Yeah. I want to invite some other voices to come and speak as well, but I also want to say this. I worked directly in the Department of Human Resources for 4 years. I got to work directly with Director Callahan. I got to work directly with all of the leadership there. And I don't want to put any person on blast, because it's not just about one person. But what I will say is this. During my time there, I got to see a lot of people do things that undermined fairness, that undermined equity, that were directly against black and brown people, to invalidate them. I am thankful, and I'm just going to say this, I'm going to preface my comment, because I'm not one of the people that they would have expected. I'm not one of the black people that they would have expected to come and speak up. And I say that because my performance was stellar. I had nothing to complain about. Do you understand? I was getting paid well. I had nothing to complain about. And it wasn't until I saw Brenda Barrows, along with Madeline, Cheryl, who might be out here, and you all can speak if you want. I'm not saying that you do. But these women, they were talking about the concerns that they had, the concerns of black workers around the city. They were saying things. And I looked at them, and I saw my mother. And I remembered all the times that she came home dealing with the same issues. And I saw my aunties, and I had nothing to lose. But I'm a black person, first to go to college in my family, first to get a master's degree, first to promote in very reputable institutions, right? I'm saying that to say this, not to center my skills and ability, but for the first time, I had the language, the knowledge, and the resources to articulate and communicate what my aunties couldn't, what my mother couldn't, what different people couldn't. Do you understand that? I learned the tools of whiteness. I learned how to speak. I learned how to dress up in a suit and go into rooms and keep people comfortable so that I could express to them the concerns of black people, even though there was a lot of rage and anger inside of me. And that rage and anger lives inside of me every day. It just absolutely does. Because I understand not only the systemic oppression, but the granular effects of racial bias and how interpersonal that is and how it works. And so then you can have, that is why you can have a black woman like Niger Edwards, who ranks #1 for a 1246 principal HR analyst, and they choose a white male named Peter Rozelle for the permanent civil service position. And then they offer her a temporary exempt 1246 position. That is how fairness and justice, because even when we are equipped, even when we're educated, even when we're qualified, we've mastered the language, it then is attitude, it's momentum, it's too aggressive or too passive or too uppity. It's always something. None of this is ever fair. And what black people need to understand is that we don't exist in a reality of fairness. This is not about fair. White people and Asian people are networked into these institutions. They're networked. I've seen people be directly appointed in positions because they knew somebody. And I said directly to Kate Howard, who was my boss, I said, I don't have a problem with you appointing white people or giving them a pass into positions, that's fine. Just do it for black people too.
Yes, yes.
I want to see you do it for black people the same way.
Yes, yes.
So all of the city leaders and our mayor, London Breed, because every department head reports to her. She directs and has direct responsibility over what happens in these departments. And I appreciate the mayor because she stepped up tremendously in signing the racial equity legislation, the ordinance that we have requiring all departments to produce racial equity action plans along with members of the Board of Supervisors. I appreciate that, but more needs to be done. It just has to. So if anybody else feels the need or wants to come up and have words, please feel free to do so. The city is probably going to try to fire me after this, so I may. You all are laughing, but I'm serious. They're going to try to get rid of me, and that's fine. I'm not leaving though without having had words and said what I'm saying, and have without having made the moves that we are making right now.
Yes, yes.
So when I leave, just remember Dante King.
All right. Dante!
Let's give Dante a big hand because he's stepping up.
Dante!
Let's give him a big hand. Yes. Let's give black people a big hand for surviving. My name is Cedric Jackson, Dr. Cedric Jackson. I'm the president of the Black Leadership Forum. And I want to come here and talk about not only the problem, because they have recognized the problem, and we have to give them kudos for that. Because for decades, for 400 years, people have been saying this is a fair country. This is a country where everybody can succeed, and we knew that didn't mean black people. We knew that didn't mean people of color. Only the tokenism of trying to sell their democracy do they allow freedom. It's one thing to say, yes, we've discriminated against black people. It's another thing to say, let's restore them to what they were, and let's restore them to the things that we took away from them in that discrimination. You can't just say, you stuck a knife in me, and okay, I acknowledge it, without healing me and giving me the ability to thrive just like you. We have to have what I call restorative justice. Reparations are part of that. Reparations are part of restoring the dignity and determination of a black people that have been incarcerated, that have been oppressed, that have been abused, that have been exploited for 400 years. It's still going on. If our lives matter, then it means that our existence has to matter. That our prosperity has to matter. That our ability to live and prosper like anybody else in America has to matter. That means that we have to have restorative justice. When we talk about any type of justice, it's not just stopping what you're doing, it's repairing what you have done. It's restoring the dignity to black people where we don't have to walk down the street and worry about our survival. Let's start worrying about how we thrive. How can we do that if there's no restorative justice? Restore us to where we were. That means all the people that have been messed over under the name of the city and county of San Francisco. That means that we used to have 70% black bus drivers. Why are we only at 30% now? Let's look at the numbers of attrition that have gone on in the city and county and tell me how many of them are black people. That's impacting the economics of our community and causing a vicious cycle of impoverishment, of social disorder, of criminal behavior, of desperation. This is what has been taken away from us. Restore it. Just don't acknowledge it. Restore it. Give us back our dignity and determination. Thank you.
Well, I will say this, and I appreciate you, Cedric, Dr. Jackson. We have to not look to be affirmed. And that if you look for justice, there's a quote by Malcolm X, and he says, when you are in your, I'm gonna paraphrase, when you are in your own country, under your own government, under your own court system, you have some type of potential to get justice. But when you are in another man's country, under another man's court system, under another man's government, you have to look to that other man for justice, and you'll never get it. Do you all understand that? So I say to everybody here, and especially the black people that are here, you don't need to depend on these systems, but we cannot look for validation in these department heads and these city leaders. When we go to HR or to file an EEO complaint, even if we go through a whole lawsuit and we don't win, we cannot look for validation because racism is happening. It is culturally embedded into the functionality of how people function. And there's a book by Dr. Ibram Kendi. It's called Stand From the Beginning. If you've never read that book, read it. Because it talks about, and I built a curriculum around this, but the legal construction of racism, how all of the laws were set up to support white people, but to also denigrate and defile black people. And so we are marked with a curse. Because here's the deal, it's not just that things were done unfairly. When all of these things were done in the white psyche that perpetuated what white people thought they could do to black people and get away with it, it created a culture, it created a disposition of people who not only see these other people as inferior, but there's contempt, there's hate, there's rage. And if white people haven't dealt with that, if they don't deal with it, it's there. They may not speak about it, but here's how you know. Whenever a white person or any such other person that's socialized in this culture, whenever they become inconvenienced by black people, their hurt feelings are weaponized. And if they are in a position of power and authority, they have the ability to do something with that. Does that make sense? Okay. And so the issues that we are dealing with, we have to get down to the level of looking at not only processes and policies, but people. What decisions are people making, and what patterns do we see? Because whether or not they are aware of racial bias and racism, the patterns, the decisioning will tell you whether or not someone is racist. They don't have to admit to it. And as Robin DiAngelo, she's an author who wrote a book called White Fragility. If you haven't read that book, you need to read that one too. She says the practice of our lives is more powerful than anything we can ever say. So it doesn't matter. I don't have to tell you that I'm an ally for women or I believe in women's rights. Look at what I'm doing in my life, and you can tell. If I'm not doing anything, then that's not true. Does that make sense? And so I want everybody out here, I'm not doing this, I don't need attention, okay? I don't even like it. I don't deal with people in my personal life because they drain my energy. I deal with enough people at work. But I'm doing this because we are not only have we been oppressed, we are still oppressed. And it is debilitating. We are spending seconds to minutes to hours of our life having to fight back. This stuff was done 60, 70 years ago, and we're still having to do it? And then I'm expected to go back to work and perform just as my white and Asian colleagues perform and meet certain performance expectations, even though they don't have to devote any emotional or mental energy to racism or to anti-blackness. Our kids are expected to perform. The little girl that got suspended because she had braids in her hair, they suspended her for 3 days, and she cried and her parents had to take off work, and yet she's still expected to go back and get straight A's. That's a bunch of BS. It doesn't happen that way. And so unless we understand how debilitating racism is, and not just the extreme acts that happen to people like Ahmaud Arbery, may he rest in peace, or George Floyd, or Breonna Taylor, or Sandra Bland, or Tamir Rice, those are extreme, and those are horrible and hurtful. But those of us that have to come into these institutions every day and die a slow death due to microaggressions, due to economic injustice, due to being invalidated because, oh, I got the degrees, but now you're too passionate. Due to all of these injustices, that's a slow death by anti-black racism. And there is nothing resilient about that. Because even though we have to wake up the next day, or we do, the stress of all of it sits within our bodies, and we don't sleep well. And then we develop bad eating habits. And then we end up dying 10 to 15 years earlier than our white and Asian counterpart. It all goes together. Does that make sense? Am I making sense? Okay, so I could just cry. But I do want to say this, and I'm going to ask anyone else, if anyone else wants to speak. The letter that was produced today by Rebecca Sherman, they made her resignation letter public, and she says in that letter, she's very apologetic to Kathy Broussard because she felt like she didn't have any other way. But she said, Kathy Broussard brought us information. Kathy Broussard brought us information, and even though it was new information, we couldn't have a finding anyway. She said that there would not be a finding, even though there was new information that showed that there should have been a finding. She concluded before the investigation was done that there would not be a finding. Do you all hear what I'm saying? That's called corruption. That is called, and I don't know if it's true, but that is what is alleged in that letter by Rebecca Sherman. So I've seen it. I'm sure you all will see it, but it's shameful. It's just shameful. Anyway, I'm going to ask if anybody else wants to speak at this time. Anyone else want to speak?
Yeah, I'll speak.
Okay.
How's everybody doing today? Good. My name is Dennis Mars, and I've been with the city for about 6 years. And I've always noticed from the beginning the unfairness, how it works. I think a lot of us is here because of that. First of all, I'd like to thank Dante because what he said, he didn't have a reason. His job was fine, his money was fine, but he's doing it for the principle, for the purpose, and that's very respectable. That's very respectable. Can you? Is right? It's very respectable, and I just applaud that. I applaud the 2 supervisors that came out. But one thing is for certain is that there definitely needs to be a change. When we try to comply, we try to file the proper complaints, we go to the right departments, and nothing happens. It's like you're hitting a wall, you know, and then you get retaliation for it. You get passed over for promotions. Pretty much, it's really sad. I'm more of an action man. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to start coming out to the meetings that the Black Employee Alliance has. And I just want to encourage everyone out here is that everybody here has a voice. So it's not, many of you have many ideas. And like a wise man said, many of you are sitting on $1 million ideas, but because of fear, you don't pursue it. So I would encourage everybody out here to participate, speak up. This crowd should be packed way out here. Come on. I mean, it should be packed way out here. But because of fear, whatever it may be. But I just want to encourage us all to really stick together and to follow the path that the man has set. And I'm just really looking forward to change, you know, so I'm just really looking forward to change. But I just want to say I'm happy to be here, and I will be attending the meetings more often.
Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Nikki Mixon, and I work for the city as well for about 20 years now. And I'm also a chief shop steward for Local 261, and I also chair their city committee that we have with all public employees. And the reason why I bring that up is because it's important for us as people of color to have a voice in our bargaining unit, whatever that may be. Because with a lot of these issues, our bargaining unit is the only ones that can demand certain things from the city. And we need to understand what those things are, and we need to use those tools to make sure that our voice is heard and our demands are met and that our issues are dealt with. That's all I have to say today. Thank you.
My name is Steve Zeltzer, and I, with Workweek Radio on KPOO, we've covered this issue of systemic racism, and also with the Committee to Stop Police Terrorism and End Systemic Racism, because people benefit from racism. Let's get real. White workers who get positions over black workers benefit personally. People make money off the exploitation of blacks, racism, slavery. And some people want to bring slavery back in this country. That guy's now quarantined. I guess his drug didn't work that he was taking, you know. So the question is last year we were here and we had 2 days of hearings. What happened after those hearings? Were people held accountable?
Right.
Were people held accountable? Now, I know the supervisors spoke and they spoke about we got to do something, but what I want to know is the city has paid over $70 million in settlements to workers who've been illegally fired, who've been discriminated against, who retaliated against. If you don't hold these managers accountable, it's going to happen again and again and again. And now we have a situation where it's exposed that a manager was actually forging documents, was actually trashing complaints, EEO complaints. We have to demand that the district attorney, Chesson Boudin, prosecute people who are engaged in criminal activity. If I, as a city employee, had done illegal things, you're damn right, I'd be gone. They would come to my house and put me in chains and take me away. So let's be clear that the discrimination and corruption is going on, and people are not being held accountable. And I think that it's a problem, because I hate to go back over and over and over and hear the stories over and over again. Why haven't these supervisors been fired who engage in illegal activity? Where's the accountability? Why is Mickey Callahan still the Human Resources Director after what she says? These people say they don't know what's going on. If they don't, they're either incompetent or they're liars. It's so flagrant in San Francisco, it's hanging out. The corruption is hanging out. So I think we have to demand accountability of the city, and I agree with the union campaign. Where are our unions? Where are unions? All the unions should be out here today. An injury to one is an injury to all. It's not just about black workers. Racism affects all working people. And our unions have to say, we are not going to tolerate systemic racism in the city or county of San Francisco. It's illegal under federal laws. It's illegal under union contracts. We have to go to war against racism. We have to go to war with it, and we can do it. The working people have the power to do it. That's what we have to do. And we need to get a movement going. We're going to have a rally on Friday at HR Market and Van Ness on Friday at noon to call these people out and to demand that they be criminally prosecuted. They've done illegal things. Again, if managers have done illegal things, they need to be criminally prosecuted. There needs to be grand jury here, and there has to be prosecution. So I think that we have to go forward. And the other thing is, the Black Lives Movement in this country is a great thing. That's why they want to shut down. That's why the police and racists have been attacking it. Because it shows the majority of people in this country are against racism. They're against systemic racism. That's a good thing. That's a very good thing. That makes my soul happy. But we have to build an organized movement to do that. And our committee is going to have a forum tomorrow on racism with workers all over the country, and also to prepare for what's coming. Because this Trump is a crazy, dangerous, racist gangster. And he may try to have a coup in this country. He is encouraging people to go and murder people at the polls. He's encouraging this terrorist to kill people. We have to start getting organized ourselves, and the labor movement is a place to do it because they have the power. Thank you, brothers and sisters.
Sienna, and just to hear in support of the disparate treatment that the African Americans are experiencing within the city and county of San Francisco, and a representative of Local 200.
How do you feel that there's systemic racism here in the city and county of San Francisco?
Say it again.
Systemic racism, you think it exists in San Francisco?
Absolutely, absolutely, and it's been displayed in the agency for an extended period of time, and now it's being brought to light.
There were hearings last year, 2 days of hearings. Last year, workers testified about racist bullying, illegal discrimination. The city has paid out over $70 million in settlements. Why is it continuing?
I don't know. I've experienced it myself. So
what happened to you?
I was being bullied by my supervisors, and I brought it to EEO, and it was brushed under the rug. So I'm not only here as a Local 200 member, but I'm also here as a person who has personally experienced it as well.
And are you shocked by this situation of the manager who was forging documents? What was that all about?
Not at all. It's just a lot of underhanded things that's going on with the city and county of San Francisco. That has been continuous.
Who also wanted to speak, who are members of the Black Employee Alliance leadership. So, yeah, wanted to make that clear.
Hello, ladies and gentlemen, brothers and sisters. My name is Selena Keene. I go by Miss K. I work for HSA. I am the current chapter president of HSA. We have been making some strides since I took over and have a lot more unity going on. I've been bringing several issues to the table. One of them is the systemic racism regarding promotions, hiring, even acting assignments have been blatantly, we've been slapped in the face blatantly at our offices. You know, we're seeing folks that don't even deserve to get a supervisor position, not even on the list, getting picked over competent, experienced, skilled, black and brown brothers and sisters. And we're all tired of it. On top of that, you know, dealing with the regular workload issues, it's just a lot of abuse and bullying. And I'm just kind of tired, I'm sorry, but this is really stressful, and then on top of it, we've got the COVID going on. You know, we've got a shelter in place. We've got the 6 feet distancing, keeping the mask on. You know, somebody who thought they was invincible, it finally caught up to them. You know what I'm saying? Superman is now bedded down somewhere. You know, so the bottom line, he's representing negativity, and we need to turn this all around and bring some positivity in every little step we take. I don't care if it's in your homes, it's in your communities, at your jobs, in your offices. You need to try to make sure you make a difference somewhere, because you are being heard, and I'm so glad about the Black Lives Matter campaign across this country, and I'm glad to see others outside of the black and brown, brothers and sisters, everybody else joining forces together to try to make a difference and show the fact that we are no longer going to take this lying down no more. It's over. It's so old and dusty. I swear, this is, you know, I mean, how many times, we don't need to be begging and asking for shit.
That's right.
We don't need to ask and beg for another damn thing. We well deserving. A lot of us is educated. We're competent, smart, you know, we care about our communities. You know, I'm just saying, you know, one thing I'm just glad that we see more blacks getting together and hanging out, you know what I'm saying? Because I'm so tired of like the black on black crimes. And I mean, shit, you don't even have to do that no more. The police are doing it for you. You know what I'm saying? People need to reach out, teach one, reach one. Get to what these youths are. Get with the youth and start mentoring the youth, man. And hold their hand. Bring them in here.
Yep, that's right.
You know what I'm saying? Because this world is gonna get turned over to them once we go. You know, so they need to learn how to take a stand right now. So teach your kids, your grandbabies, your great grandbabies. Bring your nieces and your nephews. I don't care if you bring your grandma, your auntie in the wheelchair. I don't care. You need to bring them. You know, because we all have been suffering far, far, far too long. And it's time to stop. Put a stop to it. Thank you.
I wanted to just
Real quick. Hi, my name is Adrienne Heim. I'm with the SFMTA. I've been with the SFMTA for 6 years. And just want to let you guys know that we have a Black and African American affinity group that began, and one of our main asks is to address the disproportionate amount of disciplinary actions that have been happening to Black employees, specifically a lot of female and male employees. Just to throw some stats at you, African American and Black staff represent 27.9% of the MTA employee population, but receive 50% of the disciplinary charged offenses. African American and Black men represent 21% of total male population, but receive 40% of the disciplinary actions. African American and Black women represent 49% of total women population, but receive 85 to 90% of all disciplinary actions issued. So, yes. So we're asking the board, we're asking Director Tumlin and HR Director Ackerman to address these issues. And we're going to go to the board on Tuesday during public comment, and we're going to ask to be on the agenda for November. So we need new members to join our effort. That's all I want to say.
Black employee email address just for people to send information then. Just
I don't have it.
Oh, okay.
Can you do it, please?
Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate it.
Hi, I just wanted to remind everyone to get involved with the Black Employee Alliance. This is great, it's wonderful, but this is only the beginning, right? It's nice to come out here, but we have strategies, we have policies to influence, and most importantly, we have people to support. So there's a lot of that going on, so we appeal to you, send an email to blackemployeealliance@gmail.com. blackemployeealliance@gmail.com. Dante is doing a great job, but he can't do this on his own, right? So we need everybody on board. We need all hands on deck. The same way you showed up here today, show up at every meeting. Show up at the next one, at the next one. Thank you.
And
So we're going to wrap up, but the last thing that I do want to say, and I want to recognize, because it's not just me, but there's a lot of hands in this of people who put this together. But I do want to recognize Brenda Barrows. I want to recognize Madeline McMillan. I want to recognize Kimberly Cox. I want to recognize Cheryl Thornton. I also want to recognize people who are leaders of the Black Employee Alliance but that are not here, could not be here. Damaris Evans, Betsy Grand, Arella Blackwood, Rakita O'Neill, Jessica Brown, who's actually here, she's over there. Yes. Dr. Zaya Malawa of the Department of Public Health. So I want to, and there are some others, but those are the main ones. When we started this, January 31st, 2018, we started a Black Employee Alliance, and we had a meeting over at 25 Van Ness, and we just decided, like, something has to give. We watched as more than 60 Black employees got up at the hearing in September 2018 and just shared their story. And we also, one by one. And so I was looking at it, right? And after the first 5, I was like, okay, wow, this is kind of bad. By number 15, I was like, the city has a problem. And by number 50, I was crying. I was literally crying. When the woman got up and she said that the manager or supervisor called her a nigger, and she went to Department of Human Resources and they said that that doesn't constitute discrimination.
Oh my God.
And I said to the person sitting next to me, I said, had that been me, I would have lost my job. So how does it not constitute discrimination, right? So anyway, I just want to reiterate what Jamoke said. If you reach out to the Black Employee Alliance and you email blackemployeealliance@gmail.com.
Why you're here today?
Transport Workers Union Local 250A is always in support of the Black and Brown movements. That's the reason why we are out here today, to shine light and to shed the reality in terms of what is really happening at City Hall, DHR, EEO, etc. So that's the reason why we, TWU Local 250A, are out here in support of the Black and Brown movements.
And apparently managers here have been forging documents, destroyed complaints at EEO. What should happen? It seems like that's really a criminal, actually.
What should happen is the same thing that happens to transit operators. They should be brought up on disciplinary charges for these illegal activities. You have operators who are being brought up on charges for wearing the wrong headband, whatever the hell that means. You have operators who are being suspended for being rear-ended in their buses while their buses are stopped with their doors open picking up passengers. But you have managers and supervisors forging signatures, wasting millions of dollars, taxpayer dollars, and nothing happens to them other than an early retirement with a nice settlement package. That's bullshit.
You think the mayor, London Breed, is aware of these things? I mean, there were hearings last year. Many workers testified, blatant discrimination, racist attacks.
If the mayor is not informed about this, she is now, and I think it's time for City Hall to take action, and I'm confident that City Hall will do the right thing.
And the pandemic, how has it affected your members? Do you think frontline workers, Black, Latino workers, have been basically put in a difficult situation because of the pandemic?
Absolutely. Our frontline employees, our 9163 transit operators, are doing everything that they can to continue to provide frontline service, essential service to the city and county of San Francisco, while at the same time risking their health, their safety, their lives, putting their families' lives in danger and jeopardy. And it's extremely difficult, tough, but our operators are still out there in the front lines providing this service. Yes, it's extremely difficult, but our members are still out there.
You're here today?
Absolutely.
Okay. What's your name?
Jamias Fisher of Local 200, TWU Local 200, SFMTA Supervisors Union. And for too long, we've seen disparities within the SFMTA and the city in general when it comes to inequality, be it promotions, be it pay structure, disciplinary action, and several other areas. So to see that somebody is actually putting something together to stand up and speak for it, we had to come out and support. We had a few other members of Local 200 Executive Board who were here as well. Mr. King acknowledged our recording secretary, who plays a very active role in the Black Employee Alliance, Sienna Dunn. And, we thought it very important that we come and show our members, not only of African American descent, though that this was here for today, but all of our members who experience that inequality.
And you're local as part of the San Francisco Labor Council. What should the union movement do here in San Francisco about the systemic racism?
Excuse me?
What should the union movement do about the systemic racism? You're part of the San Francisco.
We've been working very closely with Dante King and others to put in different things in place so that we can bring about some form of legislation that can assist our employees in some form of equality. A lot of things, we don't want to speak until they're actually ready because, unfortunately things unfold or things may be brought to the table beforehand. So we'd like to see a lot of different things done, and we're actively working with other locals like 258 and other laborers in our communities.
Thank you.
Thank you.
What's your name?
My name is Devon Anderson.
And you're here at this rally today against systemic racism. What's happening with the city and county of San Francisco?
The city and county of San Francisco has inequities in their hiring practices, promotions, and disciplines as well. I was one of those who were almost terminated for taking military leave until I had to have the federal government to step in. They quickly wanted to get me out of the door for no apparent reason at all, and I found it so appalling. Also my other coworkers had also been experiencing the same type of expedient disciplines that has not been equally distributed for everybody else.
What was your job?
My job is transportation operations specialist. I work with the transit supervisors for the rails and the buses.
What did the union do?
I reached out to the union, and because of the matter, because it was also dealing with military leave, the union couldn't do anything for me, so I had to have the military and the Department of Labor to step in order to stop the discriminatory practice of attempting to terminate me, not only because I was in the military, but as well as, again, I felt that it was wrong that they was applying this to me, and other employees of color have also experienced, like I said, expedient disciplinary processes that have not been equitable across the board.
Jessica Brown? Yes. Is there something that you...
Well, why are you here today, and what are the issues that concern you? Why do we have to have a rally in San Francisco against racism?
Yeah. Well, because it deeply impacts the city workers. I mean, I think Dante made it very clear. We heard from our hearings back in 2018 of the discrimination that staff was going through, and I think it's important that as we're rallying against to, focus on racial disparities and COVID, that we also focus on who's also being deployed, and it's usually going to be Black and brown employees. And so if there's discrimination and racism within our workplace, that really impacts our longevity as a city department and how we are able to outreach to communities that need the most support from us. And we need to have a diverse and talented workforce in order to do that. But keeping employees in positions where they're being discriminated against, it impacts our efforts to retain folks. And as Dante said, it's not just with EEO claims, it's with salary disparities. It's also with, as the young lady said, disciplinary actions being disproportionately impacted by Black and African American staff. And I think it's honestly criminal that this is happening to city employees.
Do you think they should be criminally prosecuted, these people who forged documents? And
Absolutely.
Because why haven't they been?
I'm not sure. You know, I'm honestly not sure because I think this been protected, right? And so, you know, if it's systemic, there's protections that have been in place. And so I'm happy. While this is hurtful that this has been exposed, I'm happy that it has been, because now it allows us to mobilize and really hold these city officials accountable for how they treat Black and brown employees. Yes.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I can say.
Okay.
Hi.
What's your name?
Hi, I'm Grace Kong with the SFMTA. I am here on behalf of the Asian American Affinity Group with the MTA, and I also serve on the agency's Racial Equity Action Plan Project Management Committee. I'm here today to basically come up and show up and provide support to our Black colleagues. As an Asian American woman, I am very well aware of history, and I have to acknowledge that the way that Asians are thriving now and fulfilling this quote-unquote American dream or American myth is absolutely based on the work that African Americans and Black Americans have built this country. This entire foundation has been their sweat, labor, and blood and tears. So as we talk about how Asian Americans are impacted by racism, we also have to hold that we absolutely benefit from white supremacy. We look at the agency's data at the MTA, and we see disparate ways and inequities, patterns of inequity, and how our employees are being treated. My colleague Adrian spoke to the disciplinary actions that are taken against our Black colleagues. 50%, over half, actually, of all disciplinary actions targeted to our Black colleagues. And conversely, though, we're seeing that Asian Americans in the MTA are 45% of all promotions across the agency, and that is in sharp contrast to how our Black colleagues are treated. So we absolutely benefit from anti-Blackness and white supremacy, and it can go on no longer. The Asian Affinity Group at the MTA is coming together to talk about how we can combat anti-Blackness, how we can look at our own community to be better allies and really examine ourselves and call each other in with love to be better allies.
My name is Brenda Barrows. I'm the chapter president of SEIU 1021 out at San Francisco General Hospital, and I'm here supporting Black workers.
And SEIU 1021 has large numbers of Black workers. General Hospital, many departments, where are they today? Do they know about this rally?
Well, you know, this whole issue is very difficult. People are afraid of retaliation, and so everyone is not comfortable speaking up.
But there were hearings last year, 2-day hearings, workers.
Yeah, there was a hearing last year, and we had I think it was 300 people that came out and spoke.
And are you shocked by the fact that a manager at EO was destroying, forging documents?
On advice of my attorney, I can't say nothing about that, but I will say there are things in city government that definitely need to be fixed.
And should help people be held accountable. It seems like a lot of these people, former manager of the Department of Public Health, Barbara Garcia, retired, no prosecution. I mean, what's going on?
Well, I mean, you know, everybody knows the history of San Francisco. Everybody knows that for years, some managers have gotten away with things that they should not have, that regular employees would not have gotten away with. Everybody knows that. So hopefully that's why the Black Employee Alliance is in existence, so that we can give the workers a voice. And it's not about us speaking for them, giving them the courage to start speaking up for themselves.
Okay, thank you.
I'm here to in support as an ally with the Black Employees Alliance. There's a lot of shady business going on with the EEO office. I've been reading and following the events, and so I'm just here to be supportive.
You think there's a problem with systemic racism?
Absolutely, yeah.
How?
Well, it's not just the city and county. It's bigger than that, but it's embedded in all of our institutions. So it's certainly a part of this city and county government.
San Francisco is supposed to be a liberal city?
That's what they say. I haven't seen it yet. That's what they say.
What about in the unions? What should the unions be doing about this?
I think the workers are out here and the organizations understand it. I can't speak for them. I'm just here as an individual.
Are you a member of the union?
Yes, I am a member of Teamsters 856.
My name is Jumoke, and the reason I'm out here is just to continue to raise our hands and to just let everyone know that some of the complaints are legitimate, and it's not about just shutting people up. We're not looking for something different. We are looking for equity. Just treat us the same way you would treat anyone else. No one is looking for preferential treatment, right? It's just that equitable treatment. That's what this is all about.
Well, San Francisco is supposed to be a liberal city.
Yeah, human beings are supposed to be kind, right? We are all supposed to be good people, and we're all supposed to do the right thing, but some people just don't do the right thing. So that's what this is about.
What kind of work do you do?
I'm a project manager. Yeah.
You think there's systemic racism?
Of course there is. Of course there is. I have 3 black boys, and I know what I go through with them. It's just the way it is, unfortunately. And I think what makes it even more difficult is we think it doesn't exist, or we think it's manageable, or that it's gotten better. Just maybe because we happen to have a few blacks that have made it to a certain level, and then we think it's all is well now. But that's,
you mean token blacks?
I don't want to use that word, but
they have some blacks.
Yeah, and I think the most difficult part for me is that tokenism, because a lot of blacks that are supposed to be tokens are very well qualified, and they have the experience. They have every right and every justification to be in their position. So that's why I shy away from that word tokenism.
And the city had some hearings last year, 2 days of hearings. Many workers testified about how they were discriminated against, racist actions, bullying. What happened after that hearing?
I think that's part of what the city has. A racial equity working group, has a racial equity framework that is supposed to address those issues in the city, and it's a long way to go, but we can't just sit back and wait, right? What are some of the changes that can happen now? And I think the reason I'm here is because of the people that have gotten really sick from the stress of issues like this that doesn't make it to the data points, right? It's not, you don't know. I know people that have left because they were stressed out of jobs. So I owe it to myself to be here, and I owe it to those before me and those coming after me to be here.